It's like a lineup of C-list Batman villains.
Hello everyone, I'm Kevin, otherwise known as 4MBX257, here to bring you another 1980s G.I. Joe toy review, and today I'll be taking a look at the Cobra Falconer, the 1987 Raptor, and his pet falcon, Talon. Now, like a lot of 1987 and 1988 characters, he doesn't make any cartoon appearances, but he's first mentioned in the old Marvel comic run in G.I. Joe issue number 58, where you can actually see his hawks and falcons there. As a matter of fact, falconry is the sport of training a predatory bird, a wide variety of predatory birds for hunting. And I think in the comic book review, I sort of thought that falconry was only about falcons, which is kind of a mistake on my part. He makes his first full appearance in the following issue number 59. Very interestingly, on his file card, it talks about him trying to breed a new type of bird to attack a G.I. Joe, which is pretty ridiculous. However, he was handled a little bit more realistically in the comic book, where he used his falcons, or his birds, as a means of tracking the G.I. Joes, which I thought was a bit more intelligent. He was an intelligent character. Oddly enough, he ended his sentences with yes, kind of like the old Beast Wars Megatron, which I kind of found annoying, though. It's also interesting to note that on the contents list, that's where his falcon is called Talon. It's not mentioned on the backs of the file cards. As a matter of fact, I think this is the only Cobra figure with a animal companion that is actually named.
First, I'll take a look at his pet falcon, Talon. I have to very carefully take it off his wrist there. It has this wrist-shaped foot. A lot of the G.I. Joe birds have that. And it's very fragile. It almost always wants to crack off right off the top of the foot there. It is two separate pieces, but they're not meant to be removable. As a matter of fact, it's very similar to the 1984 Spirit's Eagle Freedom. Very similar sculpt of the foot there, but it's a different sculpt. Taking a look at the detail, it's very well sculpted feathers. Included that studded harness that it has. I'm not sure if real trained birds of prey have that. It looks like it would have restricted the wing movement. I'm pretty sure that they would only have it around the ankles. As a matter of fact, this mold was used again for the 1994 Street Fighter movie line, the Rock Trooper Guile. Only that bird didn't have this beige paint app on the bottom. It was just solid brown like the top. And now to take a look at his other very prominent accessory, with the card contents list as an ultralight airfoil system. And while back in 1987, the cape which turns into a glider might have been a bit ridiculous, you do have to admit this is kind of what the wingsuits, the parachutist wingsuits, kind of evolved into. So that was kind of ahead of its time, really. It has two little holes in which you put the hands. And it's attached to the back as well. As a matter of fact, this back portion is kind of sculpted to the curves of his back. So in order to put this in really well, you really do have to line it up very well with the sculpt. It has a sort of a, well, kind of a felty material on one side. Rather unfortunate that it doesn't have the pattern on the other side. One missed opportunity that you can clearly see is it looks like he has a rope and hook here. It would have been really nice if that was just a sculpted hook, like an actual hook on there, which you could loop up your string around so that you can actually have this thing gliding as part of a feature of the toy. And here's the airfoil stretched out to its maximum width. Comparing him to the other winged character in the G.I. Joe line, the 1987 Nemesis Enforcer, I kind of have to admit that Raptor looks a little bit more impressive. And that's probably the last time you will ever hear that sentence uttered. Special thanks to longtime viewer and commenter Baylor Joe for showing me this neat little trick by folding in some of the material and putting the hand hole through the back peg like that. I'm doing it for the other side as well, like that, and then putting this whole thing on his back. You get a nice little neat storage option, which looks more like a backpack or a cape. He has a few more options like this, and I'll put those photos on the Facebook page. I'm actually surprised Hasbro bothered to give Raptor's pet falcon an individual name, since you don't often think of cobras having animal companions, outside of Crocmaster's alligators, of course. But there were many out there. The 1988 Voltar came with a vulture. The Hydro Viper came with a devil ray. Naugahyde came with a boar. An Undertow came with a barracuda. A Desert Scorpion came with a giant scorpion. The 1992 Eels came with a robot shark. I'm not sure if that counts, but I will. The 2009 Night Adder came with a dog. And the 2010 Pursuit of Cobra Zartan came with a falcon. And speaking of that specific figure, a lot of collectors speculate that it was an homage to the 1987 Raptor, seeing as, to date, he doesn't have a modern interpretation of his figure. Even with the difficulty of finding Raptor's pet falcon Talon with the feet intact, it's still fairly easy to find a Raptor on the aftermarket, complete and intact, for very cheap. A lot of the 1987 figures are kind of weird, and a lot of collectors just sort of pass by that entire year of Cobra action figures, which is kind of unfortunate, but also kind of easy to understand at the same time. Well, that's all the time I have right now. Please check out my Facebook page for more information and behind-the-scenes photos for these reviews. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for next time to see another 1980s G.I. Joe toy review. See you then.